for a while, I was only listening to Christian music. I was like, nothing with curse words. And then I got to a point where I was like, I can't stand this anymore.
Why are you going to listen to music that makes you uncomfortable? Like that draws like a visceral reaction out of you that isn't positive.
I'm not gonna give my money. I'm not gonna shout them out because I think they're going against what Christ is telling me to be for. My first question is, what line do we draw for Christian and secular sources of music? Somebody hop in. The water's warm.
Water's warm.
I prefer cold water. No, a line. Okay, when you say a line, right? Okay, what line do we draw? So ask the question one more time.
Yeah. So what line do we draw for Christian and secular sources of music?
Sources.
Yeah.
Are we talking about artists?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't go first. I can't go first with this one. This is a tough one. I
think I used to be very nitpicky about what types of music I would listen to, because I was coming from the background of, what you take in is what you're going to give out. So what you're absorbing, like whether it's media, music, videos, whatever, you're going to be letting that back out into the world. And so it matters a lot, like what you're taking in. And so I had that mindset. And so it was like, for a while, I was only listening to Christian music. I was like, nothing with curse words, nothing vulgar, all has to be Christian. And I really enjoyed that for like a year, maybe a year and a half. And then I got to a point where I was like, I can't stand this anymore.
I'm done with it.
I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm tired of it. I like other music. Other than Christian music. And I want to be myself, and I want to be able to express myself, and I want to have fun, and I want to feel free to listen to things that I enjoy. And so I started listening to other music, and I think there's really good messages in other music that's not Christian music. And I think there's a lot of great music out there that's not explicitly Christian, that's good for you and is fine for you. I also listen to explicit music. I don't know how good that is for me, but it really helps me get a good pump in the gym. So I still listen to it.
Oh, I love you, Marie.
That's my opinion.
I'm glad she said it first. She broke this in.
Yeah. I feel like for me, what I always think about is whenever like I'm intaking even like books, movies, like music specifically, like people like put their soul like into the music. And so I kind of feel like it's kind of like hanging out with that person because they're literally like talking through the speaker. And so I think that that's like, if I would want this person to like, if I'd actually want to hang out with this person, then I listen to their music. But
That's it. That's an interesting point. Yeah, I used to think, I know what you're talking about, Marie, as far as it depends on what you view goes into you. There's like you open a spiritual door. Whatever you view or listen to something, you open a spiritual door. And I don't agree with that fully now. I could think that it has like impact. My big thing is whether it's more on like my reasoning on whether I want to support that artist or not. So like, for instance, right, I used to listen to Lil Uzi Vert, right? And I think he was the last artist that I kept there and held on to before I'm like, got to cut my ties with you. Right. And the reason why, because at the time I was listening to, not just secular music, but it was like explicit, it was raunchy, it was demeaning to women in general, even to men who, have type of lifestyles or glorify lifestyles like that talk about trapping, killing, being with a lot of women. And it just kind of seemed like the opposite of what I wanted to go to, like my direction. But also I was like, do I want to give that person my ears, right? Like give them my listen. And I think it's big as like boycotting, right? Like how far do we go into boycotting when it comes to like, okay, Target streamlines a LGBTQ line of clothing and that person who did that was satanic. Now, I don't believe that me buying from Target opens a satanic door realm to me. By no means. On the logical side, I'm more thinking, I don't want to support them. I don't want to support what they're putting out to people that I think is harmful. That's my like reasoning for it.
I like that.
Good sense.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. This is super, super tough because, okay, the question like, okay, where do you draw the line? I think it's really important for me, and this is what I'll say. To me, my answer is, will it lead you to sin? Like, and I'm talking, and now that opens up another door of all the seemingly innocuous or indirect manners that something could lead you to sin. And I personally, with music, it can be so ambiguous that I don't like to dive into that when it comes to music. But if it directly does, and I think this takes a level of knowing of oneself, because I can listen to a song that talks about all the lean in the world, all the codeine, all the this that I will never do. And I know I will never do it. No matter how many times I listen to that song, it's just not gonna, you will not get me to do a crazy, crazy drug. All these drugs these rappers talk about, as much as I listen to them, I'm not gonna do it. Now, I will say to the person that might have more of a leaning towards to those things, or it's dabbled in those things already, and they hear the artist talk about the night they had, right? And that could slip you back. Now, okay, now it's like, you probably want to stay away from that, you know? So I think it's that line to me is, will it lead you to sin directly? Like where that's a trigger for you, right? That's my answer.
Yeah, that's good. It's kind of like you're talking about like Romans 14 talks about the conscious of oneself, of how some things could be sin to some people, like whether like something that's not inherently a sin, but like if I have the conscience to think that I listen to explicit music is a sin, then that becomes sin to me. I think it's different for everybody. That therefore it has to have a lot of discernment in place for that to happen.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So do you not listen to certain artists that you don't want to give like their money to? Like Little Uzi Vert.
Yeah.
Like, do you have like a list?
I don't have a list. I just know like it's not just the artist. Like it's just not what they put out. It's like who they are too. It's like in the same thing for me, like for a church, if a church is spreading a false type of theology or gospel, I'm not going to give my money. I'm not going to shout them out. I'm not going to endorse them because I think they're going against what Christ is telling me to be for. So I don't have a list, but I just like what they say, what they do. So like it could be a country singer to me, and their lifestyle is like crazy off the walls. That looks something like, and they're spreading, I think the important thing is their lifestyle spreading a message, and do I want to support that message? From me.
And I think that's kind of where you draw the line, where just to expound upon that, it's like personal for each person. Like, why are you going to listen to music that makes you uncomfortable? Like that draws like a visceral reaction out of you that isn't positive. And I think that's dependent on each person. And it's like, as Christians, I think that as far as listening to secular music, because I used to be the same way as far as like, you know, input, output, as far as like, are we allowed to listen to secular music at all? I think as long as you have a foundation of faith in God and you view music, you know, just in its art form, and you don't allow it to influence you, like you use it to get a pump at the gym, you use it for entertainment, then I think there's no issue with it. And that's kind of where it goes down to personal, because anything can, well, I guess outside of direct Christian music can become a sin. And even you were saying in your life where you were listening to so much Christian music, you got annoyed with it after a while. So it's just one of those things where it kind of depends on your journey.
And I had a conversation. It was really interesting. I had a conversation with a guy that we're associates, and we were talking about an artist, and this artist is a very like darker artist, but I really fell in love with their music, and I was like, man, like I love their music. I was like, this guy's weird though. And
This isn't Kanye, right?
no.
Okay. That's like it, sir.
Yeah, I'll keep them unnamed, but dark artist, dope, incredible artist though. You know what I mean? Like when I can separate the two, where I'm like, man, exactly. And so I was checking him out, and then I was like, but I wouldn't suggest. I just said this to him. I was like, you know, because we kind of came together on the fact that we both like this artist, and I was like, but I wouldn't suggest listening to them to someone that's like going through depression. And he was like, why would you say that? Like, and he was like, it was very visceral, his response. And I was like, I don't know. I think like it can make them dig that hole a bit deeper, or can help them dig that hole. And he was like, no. He was like, what? What do you mean? He was like, music, like people go to. He said, people go to listen to the music when they're feeling down or whatever. He said because it's something to relate to, right? And I do understand that greatly. And that was a really great point from him. But I still also believe that, you know, if you're partying, you want to play party upbeat music to enhance the party. Sometimes, yes, if you're sad, you want to cry, and you play the sad song that you know might make you cry. And maybe you're searching for release, or maybe you're searching for an inhibitor to lead you to go deeper into that hole. Because sadness, depression can work that way, where sometimes it's like you want to feel it even more, and that can become dangerous, especially when you're dealing with certain types of people, you know. So that's another level to the conversation with music and how it can inhibit you, you know.
Yeah, I think it's like understanding. This is the way I think about that music is an influence. And so it's very similar to a lot of different forms of media, like books and TV shows, like what you were saying. It influences you. Even like if I'm on social media, I remember there was a season, like I was on social media a lot. I still am. But in my mind, like I started like cussing in my mind, and I was like, what the heck? Like, where is this coming from? Like it would like come up, and I would have to stop myself from saying something, and I don't cuss. And I was like, where's this coming from? And I realized it was all these like, you know, you're just scrolling through TikTok, or, well, I don't have TikTok, I have Instagram. And there would just be people cussing, you know, and it wasn't really bad, but I didn't really notice it, but it started affecting my brain and how it was working. And it must have just been giving me a lot of videos with cussing in it, because that doesn't happen now. I don't know why. But then I also remember a time I was in a car, and I was listening to like this like type music, and I was like, this is a great song. But I remember I started feeling really angry a lot, and it was just like I just felt that anger, and it was like internally, like even when I wouldn't listen to it, because I was listening to it a lot, and I realized I was like, this is affecting me. And I decided, I was like, I'm gonna stop listening to this, and I'm gonna listen to things that are good, you know, and that encourage, you know, good behavior within me. And I think I listen to some secular music. Like, I think some secular love songs are really, really beautiful. And so I don't think you have to listen to purely Christian, but I would say, considering, you know, that we do know it has an influence, I think there's also sometimes deeper spiritual influences. And that's more what I think about nowadays with like Hollywood and all those artists, especially ones who are very blatantly showing demonic things, or they're dressing up like Satan, or I know Taylor Swift, she like tweeted something about like being a witch, and like it looks kind of like she was joking, but she was like, oh, like for all my fellow witches out here, here's my playlist. And it was like, you know, or in some of her music videos, like she had like a demon mask on, and she was like dancing when like there are people, yeah, and most people don't know this stuff, but it's like it's there. And it kind of leads you to wonder, like, is this, Is there things that I'm not noticing deep that is being influenced in this music? Because if I know that if they're talking about witchcraft, if they're talking about demonic stuff, and I don't remember the guy, but there's a guy who's like really into that. Who is he?
Lil Nas X.
Yeah. I wouldn't listen to that. Right? Even if it's like great and there's no cussing, it's not explicit, and it's just like, I would be like, there is things that happen on the spiritual realm, and if you are showing me that you're trying to kind of press into that, I don't know if it's for clout sometimes or if you're actually doing things, but I'm not going to risk it. And so then that's when I start being like, I don't want any influences coming in that way. But there are a lot of secular artists which are perfectly fine, and they're not showing any signs of that, and I will listen to it.
No.
But I just want to be careful not to be influenced, because we can be strong, but there's a scripture that says, be careful when you think you stand lest you fall.
Yeah.
So it's being aware that we might be in a really good place one moment and the next we're not. And you never know when that will happen. So you got to protect yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I like what you said about having like a firm foundation of faith too, because I think a big thing is when kids are younger or even teens are younger, there were things I was listening to that I should not have been listening to, that I did not know. Like now, when you're older and you listen to a song you listened to as a kid and you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Like, I had no idea.
And you see all the innuendos, I didn't get that when I was a kid.
Well, and there's some innocence in that because you don't know what you don't know what you don't know, which is good. Exactly. But at the same time, like, it could sink into your, like, little things can sink into your subconscious. And if you don't have that firm foundation, you might not have the self-awareness and self-consciousness to know, oh, this is not good for me, or like for you to be like, oh, this music really makes me angry, and like that's not good for me.
Yeah. And for some people,
have that awareness,
it might not. And that's, it does depend on each person.
Right. I mean, when I was going through like a really dark time with depression and anxiety, like listening to really sad music that described exactly how I felt is what got me through it. And so I understand that. But that's not, if I listen to that all the time now, I'd be like depressed all the time. That's not what I need anymore, because I'm not going through what I was going through anymore. So yeah, I think having that like self-awareness and being of a certain age to know like how this is going to affect me, and also being wise enough, or not wise enough, but not stubborn enough. Because sometimes we want to be like, no, it's fine. But, like, I can't watch music videos anymore. I can't even watch, like, sometimes the cover art on certain songs I like to listen to anymore. Because I'm like, whoa, like, that's straight, like, wow. And it's on my, like, phone, and, like, I'll be, like, driving, and, like, it'll come up on my phone, and I'll be like, what if someone is behind me and thinks I am watching this? Like, I have one artist I like to listen to, and, like, it came up, and I was just shocked. Like, I was like, my eyes did not need to see that today. I did not ask
like
to
that. I'm like, I don't want you on my playlist, because exactly that thing coming up, and then seeing that, and like...
Well, and I'm bad. I still listen to the song because I love the song. I think it's a great song. I just wish that these artists weren't chasing the clout, chasing this fame and like Lil Nas X, like acting this way that's so unnecessary to being a good artist.
Yeah.
And having good music.
I think all in all, just to close this question, when it comes to, in the Bible, like, this is not a really blanket statement you could put in every scenario for all cases. And with that, as Christians, it just takes wisdom, and self-reflection and just discernment to know, what's good for us, what's not good for us. And that may look different for everybody. Because the Bible doesn't, explicitly say, these things. But I think, using wisdom from the Bible can be applicable to what we do or do not listen to.
Yeah.
Sure.